Married for 3 years, my husband Marcus not only trampled on my heart but also treated the little care he offered as mere charity. When I heard about his illicit affair with the woman he'd always yearned for, I fumed, picking up the phone. "Ethan, do me a favor. I want to make the Vance family lose everything." I held the phone, my voice so calm it was almost devoid of warmth, yet a slight tremor in my tone betrayed my hidden emotions. On the other end, Ethan was silent for a moment, then his deep, resolute voice came through. "All right, Grace. Whatever decision you make, I'm with you." Ethan's voice was like a strong dose of confidence, instantly calming the storm within me. I took a deep breath, fighting back the tears welling in my eyes. "Ethan, I want a divorce, leaving with nothing." "No problem, none of that matters." Ethan's tone remained steady, carrying an undeniable force. "Grace, you've been wronged." His words were like a key, instantly unlocking my emotional floodgates, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I bit my lip hard, trying to suppress my sobs, and whispered, "Ethan, thank you." "Silly girl, no need for formalities with me." Ethan sighed softly, a hint of tenderness in his voice. "Take care of yourself. Leave the rest to me." After hanging up, I collapsed weakly onto the couch, my fingers unconsciously tracing the divorce agreement on the coffee table. The black words on white paper stung my eyes. 3 years of marriage, and it had finally come to this. Memories flooded in like a tide, unstoppable. 3 years ago, Marcus's tenderness and deep affection made me believe I had found my home. He remembered all my preferences, would prepare surprises for me, and would stay by my side tirelessly when I was sick. I had thought he loved me, or at least, he once did. But when did things start to change? Was it after Chloe returned to the country? Or was it even earlier, and I just refused to face reality? Perhaps only Marcus himself knew the answer. But now, I no longer wanted to ask. Everything from the past was like a magnificent dream, ultimately a fragile bubble, ready to burst at the slightest touch. Now, the dream was over, and it was time for me to wake up. I picked up the divorce agreement, checked it carefully, and after confirming everything was in order, I got up and walked to the window, pulling back the curtains. Outside, the night was deep, and the starlight dim. Just like my current mood, a murky gray, with no hint of light. But I knew dawn would eventually come. And I, Grace, would eventually embrace my own new beginning. "Marcus, congratulations. Vance is truly thriving under your leadership." A middle-aged man in a suit, holding a glass, approached Marcus, his face beaming with smiles. Vance was celebrating its 30th anniversary gala, drawing a crowd of celebrities and prominent figures. I stood in a corner, watching Marcus and Chloe at the center of the crowd, my heart twisting in agony. Chloe wore a simple yet elegant white evening gown, remarkably similar to the one I was wearing. I had specifically chosen mine to match Marcus's black suit. But now, it had become the greatest irony. Chloe smiled sweetly, her arm linked with Marcus's, the two looking like a perfect couple. "Robert, you're too kind," Marcus said with a faint smile, raising his glass and lightly clinking it with the other man's. "I also want to thank everyone for their support." "Marcus, I hear you're interested in entering the new energy sector recently?" Another guest leaned in, probing with a question. "That is the plan," Marcus nodded slightly, a hint of confidence in his voice. "Miss has a lot of experience in this area and I believe she'll be a great help to us." As he spoke, he turned to Chloe, his gaze soft. "Chloe, what do you think?" Marcus always has excellent judgment. "I'm sure this project will be a success," Chloe said with a sweet smile, her eyes full of admiration. "I'll do my best to assist Marcus." "That's good," Marcus nodded in satisfaction. Then, as if remembering something, he instructed his assistant, "Oh, right, adjust Chloe's position. Transfer her to a core department as assistant director." "Yes, Marcus." The assistant respectfully replied. A chorus of compliments rose around them, praising Marcus's boldness and Chloe's capabilities. Listening to their words, I felt waves of nausea. The core department, that was where I had always strived to be. To be able to stand beside Marcus, I had studied relentlessly and worked hard to improve myself. Yet now, Chloe had effortlessly gained the position I had longed for, and hadn't even given me a glance. He even announced this decision publicly, without the slightest regard for my feelings. My heart sank, bit by bit, becoming chillingly cold. I silently turned, wanting to leave this suffocating place. "Grace, where are you going?" Marcus's voice came from behind me. I stopped, but didn't turn around. "I'm going to get some air." I tried to keep my voice calm, but a slight tremor still betrayed my emotions. "Don't wander off. There are still important guests to meet later." Marcus's voice remained cold. "Understood." I responded blandly, quickened my pace, and escaped the commotion. On the terrace outside the ballroom, the evening breeze blew gently, dispelling some of my distress. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the turmoil within me. But still, tears flowed uncontrollably. I didn't know how long I had been standing there until I heard footsteps behind me. I thought it was Marcus, so I quickly wiped away my tears and turned around. But I found that it was Ethan. Ethan, why are you here? I looked at him in surprise. I was worried about you, Ethan said, walking up to me, his gaze full of concern. Grace, are you all right? I'm fine, I forced a smile. Ethan, how did you know I was here? I called Marcus, and he said you were here. Ethan looked at me, his eyes sharp. Grace, tell me, has Marcus been mistreating you? No, I shook my head, not wanting to worry him. Ethan, don't overthink it. Grace, you don't have to hide anything from me. Ethan's voice was deep and firm. If you've been wronged, you must tell me. I'll make things right for you. Ethan. I couldn't hold back any longer and threw myself into Ethan's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. All the grievances, all the resentment, finally found an outlet at that moment. Ethan gently patted my back, saying nothing, just quietly staying with me, until my emotions gradually calmed down. Grace, have you really made up your mind? Ethan looked at me, asking seriously. Yes, I nodded, my gaze firm. Ethan, I've thought it all through. Good, Ethan took a deep breath. Grace, whatever decision you make, I'll support you. Thank you, Ethan. I looked at Ethan, my heart filled with gratitude. I knew this path would be difficult, but I believed that with Ethan by my side, I would surely succeed. A few days later, my fragrance launch event arrived. The venue was bustling with people. I stood on stage, looking at everything before me, my heart filled with anticipation. This was a new perfume I had meticulously developed over 6 months. For it, I had endured countless sleepless nights, consulted vast amounts of data, and conducted countless experiments. I hoped it would gain everyone's approval. I hoped it would make me, in Marcus's eyes, no longer just a stand-in. Next, please welcome our perfumer, Miss, to introduce the design concept of this new fragrance. The host's voice pulled my thoughts back to reality. I took a deep breath, walked to the front of the stage, and took the microphone. Hello everyone, I'm Grace. My voice trembled slightly. This fragrance is called Stardust, and its inspiration comes from. Before I could finish, I was interrupted by a sudden commotion. Gasps and exclamations arose from the crowd. What's going on? What happened? I looked down at the audience in confusion. ISAW that the neatly arranged perfume display stand was now in complete disarray. Perfume bottles lay shattered on the floor, liquids flowing and mixing with pungent odors. What is this? I stared at the scene in shock, my mind a blank. Grace, look at the mess you've made. Chloe's voice was sharp and piercing. She walked out from the crowd, pointing at me. You actually tried to trick everyone with inferior perfume. I didn't. I instinctively retorted. These perfumes were all personally blended by me. How could they be inferior? Personally blended? Chloe sneered. What right do you have to blend perfume? You're nothing but a good-for-nothing who doesn't even have a perfumer's license. Chloe, Marcus's voice came from behind me. Don't say that. He walked to Chloe's side, his tone gentle. I believe Grace. She didn't mean to do this. Marcus, you're just too kind. That's why she's able to deceive you. Chloe's face was full of grievance. Look, these perfumes are completely unusable. They'll ruin people's faces if they use them. Grace, Marcus looked at me, his gaze complex. You've truly disappointed me. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain, but found my voice caught in my throat. I looked at Marcus, at the disappointment in his eyes, at him standing unhesitatingly by Chloe's side. My heart throbbed with pain. I thought that as long as I worked hard and proved my abilities, I could gain his approval. But now, it seemed it was all wishful thinking on my part. In his heart, I would never measure up to Chloe. Grace, do you have anything else to say? Chloe looked at me triumphantly. If you admit your mistake now, I might consider forgiving you. I'm not wrong. I raised my head and looked at Chloe, enunciating each word. I will not apologize. You. Chloe was choked with fury. Fine, Grace, just you wait. She turned to Marcus. Marcus, look at her, she's so arrogant. You must punish her severely. Grace, Marcus looked at me, his voice icy. Parting today, you don't need to come to the company anymore. Your position will be reinstated only when you apologize to Chloe. I'll have the finance department settle your salary. Marcus, you can't do this to me. I couldn't hold back any longer and shouted. These perfumes genuinely have no issues. Enough. Marcus reprimanded sharply. Grace, haven't you caused enough trouble? If you continue to be so unreasonable, don't blame me for being unkind. I'm being unreasonable? I looked at Marcus and found it laughable. Marcus, have you ever considered that all of this was planned by Chloe? Grace, don't slander me. Chloe's face was full of anger. How could I do such a thing? Marcus, you have to believe me. I believe you. Marcus looked at Chloe, his voice gentle. Chloe, don't be angry. I'll handle this. Grace, you've disappointed me deeply. Marcus turned his head and looked at me. I opened my mouth, wanting to explain, but couldn't make any sound. I believe Chloe, she's not a liar. Don't come to me until you admit your mistake. Marcus's words pronounced my death sentence. I looked at him, at the coldness and disgust in his eyes, and found it laughable. 3 years, and I still held expectations for him. I thought that as long as I worked hard, I could gain his approval. But now, it seemed it was all wishful thinking on my part. I turned and left. Behind me, I heard Chloe's triumphant laughter. I stumbled out, the sunlight outside hurting my eyes. Cold air filled my lungs, and I slowly came back to my senses. I couldn't collapse. I had more important things to do. Fighting back tears, I took out my cell phone and dialed a number. Hello, is this the moving company? I need to move. I gave the Vance family residence address, my voice so calm it surprised even myself. After hanging up the phone, I looked up at the sky. The sunlight was still dazzling, but it could no longer scorch my heart. Because my heart was already dead. Completely dead. I walked aimlessly down the street, my mind a blank. I didn't know how long I walked until I stopped in front of a coffee shop. I went inside and found a window seat. A server came over and asked what I wanted. Please. I said blandly, my voice hoarse. After the server left, I gazed out the window, my thoughts drifting. Marcus and I met in college. At that time, he was the big man on campus, while I was just an ordinary, unremarkable student. I never imagined we would end up together. But fate works in mysterious ways. We met at a club event. He approached me and asked my name. I told him my name was Grace. He said my name was beautiful and that I was as lovely as my name. I smiled, a very happy smile. That was our first, and only, calm conversation. Later, he started pursuing me. He would bring me breakfast every morning, secretly sit in the back row during my classes, and stay by my side when I was sick. I admit, I was touched. I accepted his pursuit, and we became a couple. That period was the happiest time of my life. We attended classes together, ate meals together, and studied at the library together. He would prepare surprises for my birthday and give me a warm hug when I was sad. I thought we would continue to be happy like that forever. But reality is always cruel. After graduation, he took over the family business and became the CEO of Vance. And I became a perfumer. Our lives began to diverge. He got busier and busier, and we saw each other less and less. He started being hot and cold with me, and I became anxious and insecure. I tried to salvage our relationship, working hard to prove myself. But it was all in vain. His heart was no longer with me. I didn't know when I became aware of Chloe's existence. Perhaps it was when he started traveling frequently for business. Perhaps it was when he started becoming increasingly cold towards me. Perhaps it was when he stopped answering my calls. I once tried to ask him what his relationship with Chloe was. He always brushed me off, saying they were just friends. I believed him. I chose to trust him. But my trust was met with betrayal. It was a complete and utter betrayal. The coffee was served. I looked down at the dark brown liquid in the cup. A bitter taste spread through my mouth. I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. Grace, you can't cry. You've cried enough. You need to be strong. You need to leave him. You need to start a new life. I opened my eyes, picked up the coffee, and drank it in one gulp. The bitter taste stimulated my senses. I put down the cup, stood up, and left. I returned to the Vance family residence and started packing my belongings. I didn't take much, just a few clothes and some important documents. And my mother's keepsakes. It was a perfume bottle, containing my mother's favorite fragrance during her lifetime. I held it tightly in my hand, feeling the familiar scent. Mom, I miss you so much. I'm so tired. I wish I could just leave this world. But I can't. I can't let Marcus and Chloe get what they want. I will make them pay. I finished packing and walked out of the room. The living room was empty. Marcus hadn't returned yet. I walked to the door and stopped. I looked back at the place where I had lived for 3 years. This place was once full of our memories. But now, everything had changed. I took a deep breath, turned, and left. I didn't look back. I walked out of the Vance family residence gate, into the vast night. Marcus returned home, it was late at night. He walked into the living room, exhausted, but didn't see Grace. Usually, by this time, she would be waiting for him in the living room, having prepared hot tea and a late-night snack. But today, the living room was desolate, only cold air silently flowing through it. "Grace?" Marcus called out, but there was no reply. He frowned, walked to the bedroom door, and pushed it open. The bedroom was empty. The bed was neatly made, not a single thing out of place. Her belongings were all gone. Marcus's heart sank slightly. He walked to the closet and opened the door. It was empty. Her clothes, her bags, her shoes, all gone. Only a few lonely hangers remained, swaying gently. Marcus's face instantly turned pale. He took out his cell phone and dialed her number. "We're sorry, the cell phone you are calling is currently turned off." The cold, mechanical female voice repeated itself again and again. Marcus's hand trembled slightly. He put down his cell phone and walked to the desk. On the desk lay a document. In black and white, the words "divorce agreement" were starkly visible. Marcus's pupils contracted sharply. He picked up the divorce agreement and quickly scanned it, leaving with nothing. It stated she wanted nothing, only to leave him. Marcus's breathing became ragged. He clutched the divorce agreement tightly, his knuckles turning white. "Grace, you actually dared to." He gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with fury. He thought she was just throwing a tantrum, but he was wrong. She had really left. She had left quietly. No arguments, no tears, no attempts to hold her back. Only a cold divorce agreement, declaring the end of their relationship. Marcus's body trembled slightly. He sank into the chair, feeling waves of dizziness. "Grace," he murmured, his voice hoarse. He didn't know what he was feeling at that moment. Anger? Resentment? Or panic? He didn't know. He only knew his heart felt empty, as if something important had been torn away. He looked at the divorce agreement in his hand, his eyes complex. He wanted to tear it up, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He wanted to throw it away, but he was afraid. He was afraid this was the last connection between them. He was afraid that once he lost this agreement, she would truly disappear forever. He clutched the divorce agreement tightly, letting his fingernails dig into his palm. Blood dripped onto the white paper, spreading, a shocking sight. Marcus didn't believe Grace would actually leave. He was convinced this was nothing more than her playing hard to get, simply trying to get his attention. He scoffed, tossing the divorce agreement casually onto the desk. "Grace, you think this is how you can threaten me? You're too naive." He walked to the liquor cabinet, poured a glass of red wine, and drank it in one gulp. The pungent liquid burned his throat but couldn't quench the irritation in his heart. He continued to go out with Chloe, attending various parties and entertaining clients. He tried to numb himself with busy work. He tried to fill the emptiness within him with Chloe's tenderness, but he found that it was all in vain. Whenever it was late and quiet, he would always think of Grace. He'd remember her smile, her tenderness, everything she had done for him. He began to suffer from insomnia, grew restless, and found himself unable to focus on work. He began to realize how important she was to him, but he still refused to admit it. He still believed she would return soon. He was still waiting for her to humble herself and admit her mistake to him. However, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A week passed, and Grace still hadn't appeared. Marcus began to feel agitated and uneasy. He started calling her friends, inquiring about her whereabouts. But no one knew where she had gone. They all said she hadn't contacted them in a long time. Marcus's heart sank little by little. He began to realize that things might truly be beyond his control. He began investigating her whereabouts. He mobilized all his connections and resources. But he found that she had vanished as if into thin air, leaving no trace. Her cell phone was off, her bank cards showed no transaction history, and her social media accounts had stopped updating. She had completely disappeared from his world. Marcus finally panicked. He began to realize that she might truly not be coming back. He began to regret his actions. He began to miss their time together. He began to understand that she was ally the most important person to him. But it was all too late. She had left. She had left forever. Marcus began frantically searching for Grace. He went to every place they had ever been together. The movie theater they had watched films in, the restaurants they had eaten at, the park where they had taken walks. He tried to find her presence, her scent, in these places. But he couldn't find her. All he found was endless memories and endless regret. He began to recall every little detail of their time together. He remembered every meal she had cooked for him, every outfit she had made, every surprise she had prepared. He finally understood how much she had sacrificed for him. He was filled with remorse, and unbearable pain. He wanted to win her back, he wanted to make amends to her. He wanted to tell her he was wrong, that he loved her. But he no longer had the chance. She was gone, taking her disappointment and despair with her, completely vanishing from his world. Marcus's company also began to experience various problems. First, partners canceled collaborations one after another, then the company's stock plummeted, followed by banks recalling loans. A series of blows caught Marcus off guard. He was overwhelmed and struggled to cope. Only then did he realize that she was not just his life partner but also a crucial asset to his business. She had helped him resolve many difficult issues, she had connected him with many key contacts, she had stabilized the company's situation. Yet, he had always ignored her contributions, even thinking she was useless. He now understood that he was actually the useless one. He had lost her, and with her, he had lost everything. Chloe saw Marcus starting to panic, and triumph swelled in her heart. She thought this was her chance. She would seize the opportunity and replace Grace in Marcus's heart. She deliberately acted pitifully in front of Marcus. "Marcus, don't worry, I'll always be by your side," she said softly to Marcus, her eyes filled with concern. "Grace's departure is all my fault. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have left you. Marcus, blame me. It's all my fault." As she spoke, tears began to flow. Marcus looked at Chloe, a wave of irritation sweeping over him. He didn't know why Chloe would say that. He didn't know why Chloe would think that Grace's departure was her fault. He only knew he was annoyed and confused, and he wanted to be alone. "Chloe, don't say that." Marcus's voice was somewhat cold. "This has nothing to do with you. Grace chose to leave on her own. I don't blame you." But Chloe tried to say something else, but Marcus cut her off. "Chloe, I'm tired and want to rest," Marcus said, then stood up and walked into the bedroom. Chloe watched Marcus's retreating back, a hint of malice flashing in her eyes. She didn't understand why Marcus was so cold. She was jealous, she was angry, she was unwilling to accept it. She was determined to make Marcus completely forget Grace. She secretly swore to win Marcus over, no matter the cost. At a business reception, Marcus unexpectedly learned the true identity of Ethan. Shock spread across his face, unconcealable astonishment appearing on his brows. The family? The family that controls the entire Asian fragrance market? Yes, that's the Hayes family. Mr. Lin, the business partner standing opposite him, nodded with a smile, the wine glass in his hand gently swaying. Ethan is the Hayes family's only son, the future heir of Hayes. His influence is beyond what we can imagine. I heard Hayes recently intends to enter the international market and has already acquired several top European fragrance brands. Ethan is usually very low-key. If I hadn't seen him appear with Grace at Blue Fragrance's launch event today, I wouldn't have known Grace was actually the Hayes family's heiress. Marcus's heart plummeted, and his hands unconsciously clenched into fists. "Are you sure it was Grace?" "Of course, I saw it with my own eyes." Mr. Lin OK out his cell phone and unlocked the screen. "Look, this is a photo from this afternoon's launch event. Grace is standing on stage, and the man beside her is Ethan." Marcus stared intently at the photo, as if to brand it into his memory. In the photo, Grace wore a white gown, elegant as a lotus, her expression focused and confident, introducing a newly developed fragrance to the public. Ethan, standing beside her, was in a well-tailored suit, his eyes filled with admiration and pride. This was not the Grace knew. The who was always cautious, afraid of displeasing him. The current Grace was radiant, her eyes sparkling with confidence. Marcus's heart suddenly sank, and he was struck by a sudden realization. So this was the real Grace. The heiress of Hayes, a woman with independent personality and dignity. How is this possible? Marcus's voice trembled slightly, and the wine glass in his hand almost slipped. "Grace, is she really from the Hayes family?" "Of course it's true. Ethan has always claimed to be an only son publicly to protect Grace from outside interference. I heard Grace has had a deep interest in perfumery since childhood. To pursue her dreams, she deliberately concealed her identity and ventured out on her own. This time, she returned to the Hayes family estate with her newly developed fragrance, which caused a sensation upon its launch. It's said that several international brands have already extended offers to her." Marcus felt a dull ache in his chest, and his breathing became difficult. So, Grace was never the pathetic girl he imagined, needing his charity. So, she always had a choice, yet she chose to endure his coldness and harm. He suddenly recalled every little moment of her over the past 3 years. The dinners she cooked for him. The proposals she stayed up late preparing for him. Her sleepless nights taking care of him when he was sick. None of this was because she needed to depend on him, but because she loved him. She truly and sincerely loved him. Marcus could no longer suppress the turmoil within him. He hurriedly bid farewell to Mr. Lin and rushed out of the business reception. He sat in his car, his hands trembling as he dialed Ethan's phone. The phone quickly connected, and Ethan's calm voice came through. Marcus, is there something you need? Ethan, I want to see Grace. I have something very important to tell her. I'm sorry, Marcus, Grace doesn't want to see you. Ethan's voice was calm, yet it carried an undeniable firmness. I have to see her. Marcus almost roared, his voice filled with unconcealed urgency. Tell me where she is. Marcus, Ethan's voice remained calm. Don't you think it's too late to say all this now? My sister never forced you to love her. She only hoped you would respect her and treat her as an independent person. But what about you? How did you treat her? With indifference, neglect, and betrayal. Do you know how many times she cried because of you? Do you know that she was even pregnant with your child once, but because of a single word from you, she had to terminate the pregnancy? Marcus's face instantly turned ashen, and his body swayed, almost losing his balance. What? Grace was pregnant? When did this happen? Ethan scoffed. 2 months ago, the day she confirmed her pregnancy, she excitedly went to your company to tell you the good news. And what did she see? She saw you and Chloe intimately close in your office, and what did she hear you say? If she gets pregnant, just make her terminate the pregnancy. I don't need her child. Do you know how heartbroken Grace was at that moment? She went back home, sat alone in the bathtub, and cried all night. The next day, she went to the hospital and terminated the pregnancy. Alone. Marcus's legs could no longer support him, he collapsed to the ground, tears streaming uncontrollably. No, this isn't true. It's not like that. Ethan, I didn't know. I truly didn't know. Of course you didn't. Ethan's voice was bone chillingly cold. Because you only had eyes for Chloe, you never truly paid attention to Grace. Marcus, please leave now. Grace finally gathered the courage to leave you and start her life anew. Please, don't disturb her anymore. Marcus looked up, his eyes filled with despair. Ethan, I beg you, let me see her one last time. I want to tell her I'm sorry in person. I'm begging you. Ethan looked deeply at Marcus, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Marcus, do you know? Grace has always been sensible since she was a child, she never easily shed tears. But in these past 3 years, she's cried more times than in her previous 20 years combined. Her leaving you wasn't an impulse, it was a clear decision made after being hurt by you again and again. If you truly love her, let her move on peacefully. After speaking, Ethan turned and entered the house, and the butler immediately closed the main gate, shutting Marcus out. Marcus sat dejectedly on the ground, his vision blurred by tears. He finally understood that losing Grace was a foregone conclusion. Marcus began to frantically recall every little detail of his time with Grace. Every smile, every touch, every word, replayed repeatedly in his mind. He remembered Grace cooking for him for the first time, clumsy yet earnest. He remembered Grace staying up late to work overtime with him, her eyes barely open from fatigue, yet insisting on staying by his side. He remembered the surprise Grace had meticulously prepared for his birthday, only for him to miss it due to unexpected overtime. He remembered Grace lying alone in bed with a high fever, calling him for help, but he hung up the phone, saying he was with Chloe. Memory surged like a tide, each scene piercing his heart. Marcus buried his head in his hands, curled up on the couch, overwhelmed by pain. He finally understood how deeply Grace had loved him, and he, with his own hands, had stifled that love with indifference and betrayal. Marcus B. Egan frantically searching for Grace's whereabouts. He had someone inquire about her schedule and learned that Grace would be participating in an international competition next week. He decided to intercept her there. On the day of the competition, Marcus arrived at the venue early. He stood among the crowd, anxiously searching for Grace. Finally, he saw Grace. Grace was wearing a pure white dress, her hair simply tied up, her face radiating confidence. This was a Grace he had never seen before. Confident, composed, radiant. Marcus's heart clenched tightly. Grace didn't see him and walked directly to her exhibition booth. Marcus took a deep breath and walked towards Grace. Grace. Hearing his voice, Grace's body visibly stiffened. She slowly turned around, the sparkle in her eyes instantly dimming, replaced by coldness and detachment. Marcus, why are you here? Grace, Marcus's words were cut short by the host's voice. Next, we invite Miss to the stage to present her entry. Grace glanced at Marcus, then turned and walked towards the stage. Marcus could only stand there, watching Grace's retreating figure. Grace's performance was impeccable, confident and professional. As explained the inspiration behind her work, her voice was clear and captivating. This fragrance is called Rebirth. Its top notes are citrus and lemon, symbolizing nascent hope and sunshine. The heart notes are rose and jasmine, representing the love and hurt encountered during growth. And the base notes are sandalwood and musk, signifying the refinement and maturity after weathering storms. This fragrance was more than just a perfume, it was a microcosm of Grace's life. It narrated how Grace transformed from a humble stand-in to her true self. It told the story of how she struggled through pain and found rebirth amidst despair. Marcus stood below the stage, watching Grace intently. His gaze was fervent and pained, yet it could no longer reach Grace's heart. Because heart had died. Killed by his own hands. Grace elegantly completed her presentation, and the audience erupted in applause. As soon as she stepped off the stage, Marcus impatiently stopped her. Grace, let's talk. There's nothing to talk about. Grace looked at him coldly. There's no longer any relationship between you and me. No, it's not like that. Marcus grabbed Grace's wrist, his voice filled with an urgency she'd never heard before. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please let go. Grace pulled her wrist free from his grasp, her eyes showing no flicker of emotion. Marcus, do you know? Your mistake wasn't falling in love with Chloe, it was never respecting me. In your eyes, I was always just a substitute, a plaything you could trample on at will. Grace, that's not true, Marcus's voice choked. I've always loved you. Love? Grace scoffed. Your love was throwing the cake I'd prepared into the trash on my birthday? Your love was humiliating and belittling me in front of everyone? Your love was telling me to terminate the pregnancy when I told you I was pregnant? Grace, I'm sorry, I really didn't know. Enough. Grace cut him off. Marcus, you don't need to apologize. Thank you for teaching me that loving someone requires respect and cherishment. And thank you for making me understand that some hurts can never be mended. Goodbye, Marcus. After speaking, Grace turned and walked away without looking back. Ethan was standing nearby, unseen by Grace until then. Seeing her approach, he handed her a glass of water. Are you okay? He asked softly. Yes, I'm fine. Grace took the water and smiled faintly. Let's go home. Ethan put an arm around Grace's shoulders and led her out of the venue. Behind them, Marcus's desperate shouts echoed. Grace! I'll prove it to you. I'll make you see how much I love you. Grace didn't look back, instead walking with firm steps towards her new life. Because she knew that some mistakes, once made, could never be undone. Some pains, once endured, would be remembered forever. Once, Grace had thought love was about tolerance and patience. Now, she understood that love was, first and foremost, about respect and cherish. What she had once believed to be expressions of love were, without respect, merely a self-deceiving farce. As walked out of the venue, the sunlight that met her was warm and bright. In that moment, she suddenly understood that rebirth wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was also about embracing the future. And her future had nothing to do with Marcus, it was solely about herself. Marcus didn't give up. He began appearing before Grace at various events. He would wait for her day and night beneath the building where Grace worked. He would leave flowers and apology letters in places Grace passed by. He even showed up at every event Grace attended to express his apologies. But's heart had long been closed off. She was no longer moved by his pain. No longer softened by his remorse. She just looked at him indifferently, then turned and walked away. Because she understood that some harms, once inflicted, could never be erased. Some trusts, once broken, could never be rebuilt. Marcus had been kneeling outside Grace's apartment building for 3 full days. The biting cold wind had turned his lips purple and his face pale. Rain drenched his body, yet he stubbornly remained kneeling, unwilling to leave. Mr. Vance, you'll get sick staying like this, his assistant said, holding an umbrella, his voice filled with concern. There are still many matters at the company waiting for your attention. Don't worry about me, Marcus shook his head, his voice hoarse. You can go back first. But, I said, go back. Marcus's tone suddenly hardened. The assistant sighed helplessly and had no choice but to leave. Grace stood by the window, watching Marcus downstairs. 3 days, and he hadn't moved an inch. He hadn't eaten or drunk, simply knelt there stubbornly. Grace's palm clenched white, and her nose felt sore. You still can't let him go. Ethan's voice sounded from behind her. Grace turned around, looking at her brother's concerned gaze. How could I? Grace curled her lips. I was just thinking, humans are such strange creatures. They know it brings pain, yet they insist on hurting themselves. Are you sure you won't give him another chance? Ethan walked over to Grace, looking at Marcus outside the window. Ethan, do you remember the doll Dad gave me when I was 6? Grace didn't directly answer his question. I remember. You loved that doll, slept with it, ate with it, even bathed with it. Yes, I loved it very much, Grace said softly. But one day, its arm broke, and I cried for a whole day. Dad bought me more dolls later, but I never loved any other toy as much as I loved that one. Grace. Ethan took Grace's hand, his voice low. Ethan, some things, once broken, can never be truly fixed. Grace turned her head, looking at the rain outside the window. The relationship between Marcus and me is like that doll with the broken arm. I just want to tell him he can't have it back. Let him give up. The next morning, as Grace left for work, Marcus was still kneeling there. His face was as pale as paper, his lips cracked, and his eyes bloodshot. Seeing, he struggled to stand, but his legs were numb, and he stumbled to the ground. Grace, he called her name weakly. Grace stopped, looking at him expressionlessly. Marcus, why are you doing this? I won't turn back. I know. Marcus struggled to prop himself up. I just want to tell you I'm sorry in person. I'm sorry. Grace. I'm sorry. He repeated the words over and over, his voice choked. Grace's heart, however, remained completely unmoved. Marcus, if apologies worked, there'd be no need for laws in this world, Grace said, looking at him coldly. Some hurts, once inflicted, can never be mended. I know. Marcus closed his eyes in pain. But I still want to try. Even if there's only a 1 in 10,000 chance. I want to try. It's no use, Grace shook her head. Marcus, let yourself go. And let me go. After speaking, Grace turned and walked away. Behind her, Marcus's heart-wrenching sobs echoed. His cries contained boundless regret and despair. But's heart had grown numb. She could no longer feel any pain. Nor would she ever be swayed by his words or actions again. That day, Marcus was finally admitted to the hospital. He had an unremitting high fever and severe lung infection. The doctor said if he had been brought in any later, his life might have been in danger. When told Grace this news, she was in her studio developing a new fragrance. Are you going to see him? Ethan asked. Grace shook her head, continuing with her work. No, there's no longer any relationship between him and me. Ethan sighed and said nothing more. He knew how much pain was hidden behind Grace's resolve. Marcus lay in the hospital bed, drifting in and out of consciousness for 3 days. The first thing he asked when he woke up was still about Grace's whereabouts. Where's Grace? He asked weakly. Grace didn't come. His mother sat by the bed, looking at him worriedly. Marcus, why are you doing this to yourself? She's not worthy of you, never was. Mom, don't say that. Marcus closed his eyes weakly. I'm the one who isn't worthy of her. It has always been me who isn't worthy of her. His mother sighed helplessly and took his hand. Wasn't Miss quite good? Mom, don't mention her. Marcus's voice suddenly turned cold. She's the one who made me lose Grace. All right, Mom won't mention it. Mom won't mention it. His mother stroked his forehead. You just focus on getting well. We can talk about other things once you're recovered. Mom, I want to see Grace. Marcus opened his eyes, which were full of pleading. Could you help me find her, please? Oh, my child. Please, Mom. Marcus gripped his mother's hand. I really want to see her, even if it's just one last time. Eleanor looked at her son's haggard face, her heart aching for him. All right, Mom will try. And so, Eleanor herself came to Grace's studio, asking to see her. Grace, I know Marcus has wronged you, Eleanor said, holding Grace's hand, her face full of guilt. But he truly loves you. Eleanor, you're overestimating your son's feelings for me. Grace gently withdrew her hand. The person he loved was never me. That's not true, Grace, Eleanor explained urgently. Marcus has been introverted since he was a child, not good at expressing himself. Even if he didn't say it, he always cared deeply for you in his heart. Is that so? Grace scoffed. Then why did he say I was just Chloe's substitute? Why did he throw the cake I prepared into the trash on my birthday? Why did he humiliate and belittle me in front of everyone? Why did he tell me to terminate the pregnancy after finding out I was pregnant? Hearing this, Eleanor's face turned pale. Grace, child, is this true? Did really do all these things to you? Not only that, Grace's voice was cold. Do you know, Eleanor? For him, I gave up my dreams. For him, I concealed my identity. For him, I endured so much coldness and ridicule. But what about him? He wasn't even willing to give me basic respect. Eleanor fell silent after hearing this. After a long moment, she looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. I'm sorry, Grace, she said, her voice choked. It was our failure in raising him. Marcus. He did indeed do many things wrong. But he truly regrets it now, and he's in so much pain. He's very ill, and he keeps calling your name. Grace, could you? I'm sorry, Eleanor, Grace interrupted her. Some harms, once inflicted, can never be mended. Marcus and I, there's no possibility left. Please go back. Eleanor looked at Grace's resolute gaze and finally understood that her decision wouldn't change. She sighed and slowly stood up. I understand, child, her voice was low. I won't bother you again. I hope that in the future, you'll find someone better and live a happy life. Thank you for your blessing, Eleanor. After seeing Eleanor off, Grace leaned against the door, suddenly feeling an unprecedented wave of exhaustion. Chloe rushed to the hospital the moment she heard Marcus was hospitalized. She pushed open the door and saw Marcus lying in the hospital bed, his face alarmingly pale. Marcus, how are you? She feigned concern, walking to the bedside and reaching out to touch his face. Marcus suddenly grabbed her wrist, the force so strong that Chloe cried out in pain. Get out. His voice was bone-chillingly cold, his eyes filled with disgust. Why? Chloe looked at him in disbelief. I came because I was worried about you. You were the one who sowed discord, who constantly targeted Grace. Marcus gritted his teeth. I finally understand that half the responsibility for losing Grace lies with you. What? You're blaming me? Chloe shrieked. You were the one who didn't cherish her. You were the one who said she was just a substitute. Yes, I did say those words. Marcus closed his eyes in pain. My foolishness, my arrogance, that's the fundamental reason. You're insane. What's so good about Grace? Isn't she just a lookalike of me? Chloe yelled exasperatedly. Marcus suddenly opened his eyes, his gaze as sharp as a blade. Chloe, I see clearly now, you don't even deserve to be compared to Grace. Her gentle resilience, her talent and wisdom, her unconditional love and devotion to me. And you? Nothing but schemes. You. Chloe trembled with rage. Marcus, you'll regret this. Without me, you're nothing. Get out. Marcus closed his eyes indifferently. From now on, there's nothing between you and me. Chloe stormed out, slamming the door, leaving Marcus alone in the hospital room. He slowly opened his eyes, tears falling uncontrollably. Grace, I'm sorry, he murmured to himself, his voice full of agonizing remorse. After being discharged from the hospital, Marcus became a completely different person. He no longer attended any social events, dedicating all his energy to work. He personally handled all company matters related to Grace, rectifying the losses caused by Chloe. He started following Grace's activities, collecting every piece of news about her. Whenever he saw Grace's confident and composed demeanor in front of the cameras, he would fall into a long silence. One day, he received a package. Inside was his marriage certificate, which had been cut in half. And a letter. Marcus, when you receive this letter, I will have already started a new life. I want to tell you that I don't hate you. Hate requires emotional investment, and I am no longer willing to expend any emotion on you. These past 3 years, there was warmth between us, there were moments of tenderness, but mostly, there was pain and despair. Once, I believed loving someone meant tolerating everything about them, even the hurt they caused. Now I understand that true love should be equal and mutually respectful. You never truly respected me. In your eyes, I was always just a substitute, a plaything to be discarded at will. I have let go of the past, and I hope you can do the same. Do not come looking for me again. This is my last request for respect. Grace. Marcus clutched the letter, tears streaming down his face. He knew he had completely lost Grace. And all of it was his own doing. From then on, Marcus completely disappeared from public view. Occasionally, people saw him standing alone on the street corner opposite Grace's studio, gazing from afar at the place he could no longer approach. His eyes were filled with regret and despair. Time passed. Grace's fragrance brand grew steadily, becoming an internationally renowned high-end brand. As for Vance, under Marcus's diligent management, it weathered its crisis and returned to stability. He once again stood at the pinnacle of the business world, yet he remained alone. 5 years later, Grace met Marcus at an international fashion gala. He was no longer the spirited business elite he once was, a certain weariness and introspection now marked his brow. The moment he saw Grace, a brief flicker of surprise crossed his eyes, quickly settling back into calm. Grace, he softly called her name. Long time no see. Long time no see. Grace nodded slightly, polite but distant. Are you doing well? He asked cautiously. Very well. Grace smiled faintly, then looked at the man beside her. This is my fiancé, Liam. A hint of pain flashed in Marcus's eyes, but it quickly subsided. Congratulations. He extended his hand and shook Liam's. I hope you'll be happy. Thank you. Grace nodded. You take care, Marcus. Just like that, they passed each other, like strangers. On the way back to the hotel, Liam held Grace's hand. Was that Marcus? Your ex-husband? Grace softly affirmed. The way he looked at you, Liam sighed softly, he still loves you. Grace was silent for a moment, then shook her head. That doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that I'm very happy now. Liam squeezed Grace's hand, his eyes filled with tenderness. I'll spend my life showing you what true love is. I know. Grace leaned on his shoulder, her heart filled with warmth. Some people are just passers-by in life. They bring pain, but also growth. And the one truly worthy of your lifelong trust will make you understand that love isn't about possession, but about respect and fulfillment. Marcus, Grace had let go of the past hurts. She hoped he could also let go of his obsession and start anew. Because the most precious thing in life is never clinging to past regrets, but the courage to face the future. This was Grace's final gift to him. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.